I'm glad we're back on here to discuss this journey, because obviously you've gone from literally Carrara Markets to 600 million valuation in a streetwear clothing brand called Culture Kings. Let's just take it way back for the audience. Obviously, a lot of people in Australia know you. You're well known now in the US because obviously you've broke into that market as well with a physical store and everything. Let's just take it way back, right? Obviously, did you even imagine when you started at Carrara Markets all them years ago with the clothing brand that you would ever conceptualize that you would be at the level you're at now?
It's funny. I've always sort of had big dreams. I always had a goal at school. I wrote down I wanted to be an entrepreneur from day one. I never wanted to work for anyone. So I started at the market straight out of school and was just like the hustler importing stuff from Alibaba. It's like the old school drop shipping, but where I actually had to sell it myself at the markets. But when I entered into the clothing space and streetwear, I remember when I'd had the Culture Kings up there, and I remember looking at it when we were just killing it one day at the markets, and I was like, I don't know, I think this can be $1 billion company one day. So I remember thinking that when I was at the markets, I remember that moment looking back at the logo and thinking, I've got this, like this is going to be big. So
And it's kind of like a burning desire within yourself to kind of see that reality come to pass.
Yeah, and I think the thing that we did, which as I noticed with a lot of other businesses, we stayed focused. We stayed under the radar. We were completely every waking hour on building our business from the grassroots. And that's how we were able to do it bootstrap. No loans or investors. We would just be able to, and I learned that at the market so clearly, how to run a daily P&L of, if I can finish on 50% margin, 10% rent, 10% wages, 10% other stuff, and make 20% profit. And that was that retail calculator I built from those early days at the markets that I could carry forward from our first store. I carried it forward to online, and all we would do is that 20% profit we would make per year, just reinvest that whole thing into doing the next store, the next fit out, the next software upgrade, and building slowly but surely year on year between 20 and 50% year on year growth, but for what in the end was 14 straight years.
So you knew then from day one when you were at that market, you knew that this was you had to play 10-year games. You weren't there playing quick hit and run, grab some cash, go and spend it on a Porsche, go and spend it on a house. You were literally like taking everything that you earned from that market and just going right back into more clothing, back into more stock, sell more items.
Yes, as much as I wanted to so many times, when I thought, oh, can I do it? And I think what I'm so lucky is I met my wife right at the markets. We built it together. But I was like, I'm so lucky because I worry if I was ever single, maybe I would have given to that temptation of like, I needed the car or I needed to blow it on bottle service or on trips, which that money instead poured back into the business, just amplified. And together we were so focused because we were all in it together, our back against the wall. We were working 100-hour weeks side by side. We would never be more than a meter apart, like the whole day, and night. So 24/7, we were just in it, talking, growing, building every part of Culture Kings. And I think that was, it's always the thing. What's the most important financial advice is find the right partner. And I think that's what I did in my wife. And it's like the partner is someone. Like I saw this term, it's like a partner is someone you're willing to go to war with. And that is business, right? We all know everyone, like business is war, we're just without the guns. And it's like we were in that battle, in that war though together, side by side. It wasn't like it, and that's where I feel was, I always think that was probably one of the most lucky things that happened to me and created the success that we had.
It's amazing you said that because I was going to talk to you about this later on in the podcast about this whole thing about men out there are trying to go out and build these big companies, but but I think that some of them get taken completely off track when it comes to like copious amounts of women. Then you got the drugs, then you got the bottle service, then you got all these things trying to impress upon people, and you basically turn yourself into people pivot into this lifestyle type business. What you've pressed upon so early is that you say, look, get that right woman on your team and build something together. So what are the keys to success in that and to keep the relationship fresh whilst you're in it? Because obviously you're talking about 100-hour weeks here. It's nothing. It's no small thing. Like how are you balancing that?
So we always were pretty conscious of what we were doing, and we would talk out problems that we had. You know, we would always have problems just like everyone else, but I would try and consciously put our relationship first, which sounds so hard, but it's actually the most important thing is your intimate relationship, I believe. If you put it above business, if you put it above your kids, if you put it above your work and your mission, you actually can create so much energy from it. It's like the lead domino. Everything else sort of falls in place. And it's like the thing, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you're not happy in your intimate relationship, you're not fucking happy. So I think that's what we did. And we spoke about, well, I spoke a lot about my big dreams and visions, and Tani had such belief in me. I felt I never met anyone that believed in me more than her. And I think that's so important in your intimate relationship because, yeah, friends and stuff believing in you can help, or your family can sort of help, but nowhere near as much as your intimate partner. Like, so much of the magic comes from that. So, yeah, that was a big catalyst, I believe, in us and nurturing that relationship all the way through, that we were in it together and we'd burnt our boats. We had nothing but each other and this thing that we'd created, and we made it happen.
Do you think it's harder nowadays, Simon, with the Instagrams, the TikToks of the world? Do you think it's harder for people not to see that some piece of grass might be greener on the other side? Because I think we're all getting indoctrinated personally with a lot of these dopamine hits of seeing other people on Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what is the key? What is the key there? Do you think that's a factor?
Definitely, but I think that's something we all have to be conscious of watch out for the cheap dopamine, and that cheap dopamine is everywhere. It's sugar, it's caffeine, it's liking or looking at, you know, Instagram at random girls or something. Like, you've got to be able to train that discipline, and I think cheap dopamine can just distract so much of your focus. And I know for myself is whenever I've channeled it in one direction, like, that's unlocked the magic. But doing it with my wife, it's always the thing is I just think we'll do so much more for others than we'll ever do for ourselves. And if you can get yourself in that sort of relationship, I know we sort of, in those hardest moments where if I was by myself, I'm sure I would have been really close to the dreaded quitting stage where we pulled each other through. And yeah, so.
Do you remember some of those early moments where you wanted to quit?
Yeah, definitely. I remember those moments where the alarm would go off and the thing, and we had to go. You know, we had the stores and we still had the markets. And I remember pulling up the sheets over I was so tired, and I was just like, I don't want to go. Like, I don't want to think. Or like when there's problems happening, you know, when you've got like fires starting everywhere, you know, this person's leaving and this software doesn't work and this thing's cooked, and you just want to hide under the covers and be like, I don't want to deal with it. I do think though, because we were right there, we couldn't hide from each other. And I think we never wanted to let each other down. So we'd always pull ourselves through those moments and help each other when we needed that support in those tough, scary moments that every entrepreneur goes through.
It's that accountability piece, isn't it? Because you've literally shared your vision with this woman, obviously your now wife. You shared this vision with her, and once she said to you, "Hey, I believe in you," you're like, "Holy fuck!" Now I've got to deliver it, because like I wasn't expecting you to say that potentially.
Exactly.
I was expecting you to come back with some little bit of questions or something, but no, she fully believed in you from the start. That's kind of what I'm feeling.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember that feeling, like the way she would look at me and talk about me like I was the smartest friggin' person, and it made me feel like, honestly, I could run through a fucking wall with that certainty and intensity that would come for it. So, and I think this is an important thing. I always try and, you know, with women as well, is try and explain like that what Tani did for me was so valuable, and that because a lot of women can look at their partner in the judgmental part, you know, when they're telling them their dream and vision, and sort of roll their eyes like, oh yeah, good luck with that, you know. And it's like, that's just, we know for a guy, it's like a dagger in the heart. It's punishing, and yeah.
Nothing's killed me in, you know, more than doubt in any relationship. If there's doubt there, if there's constant seeds of doubt, anything like that, and they're constantly being planted, it's like, how long do you allow doubt to go before you cut it off? Because you cannot have doubt in relationships. It's kind of the biggest killer.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to go to the root cause and uncover it, and then usually you get to it and you're like, no, it's not doubt. I was just scared. I'm scared if you do this that you'll be so successful you'll leave me behind. Like, because that's usually what that eye roll comes from if you actually unpack it. But yeah,
And it's interesting because that shows me that your experience in relationships is the fact of, you go, look, it's not this surface level thing. It's not this doubt that you think it is. It's something it's something layered below that and layered below that. So if there's a couple of people on here, which there will be, listening to it and thinking, look, my partner's not fully on board with my mission here, and I need to get him or her on board with it, what would your advice be then?
it is a great point, and I've seen this in sort of relationships, but the biggest part is that you've got to show up in your best version of yourself. And when you do that, I've always found when I've created that, it's like you create that best version of them as well. And what you can't do in a relationship is try and get that transactional point. Well, if I do this, you have to do that. Because once you get the transaction, you lose the polarity and the energy of it. I would really define like who you're going to be and what you're going to do. Tell them your vision and your dreams and how important it is to you, and try and not say it from your head, but try and say it from your heart. I've always tried to think consciously, how do you drop into that? And then when you do that, I think you have more chance of that connecting and creating that real spark where I want you on my team. I want to do this together. I want to create this vision in my head, and I know it will all be worth it one day. It's going to be hard. It's going to be moments where we scream at each other. There's going to be moments when we throw a tantrum and we drop our state in that time. But if we keep at it, it will be worth it.